One, they're cutting off their hair. They're cutting their boyfriends off from sex. They're cutting off relationships on the left. And Kamala Harris spent $100,000 recreating the set of Call Her Daddy. She spent $1 million to be interviewed by Oprah Winfrey. She spent $1 billion in her race for president. All of that with the host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless at Outkick, Tomi Lahren. 2, for the first time in my life, the left has lost control, has virtually no influence over what is cool. 3, I have a very cool story to tell you, and I have something very cool to show you today in honor of Veterans Day. It is the Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and on the Fox News Facebook page, always on demand, every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time by subscribing on YouTube. We're streaming live on YouTube, streaming live on Facebook, and streaming live at foxnews.com. We're also airing on terrestrial radio market to market across this great United States of America. But you can also listen to the Cain Show whenever you like by subscribing on Apple or on Spotify. Boys, I went back to New York. I went to your area, Willisha. I went back to the Upper West Side. Of course, I host Fox and Friends every weekend from New York City. But this week took on a little bit of extra anticipation, a little bit of extra, shall we say, schadenfreude. I wanted to walk into some of my old, New York City haunts. I wanted to walk into the Amsterdam Mail House. I wanted to walk into living rooms on the Upper West Side, just owning it. I just wanted to walk in, just,
Wow.
I just wanted to,
Wow.
I wanted to lean in a little.
Someone's feeling fiery.
I wanted this victory. But here's what I wanted to tell you. I'm a little disappointed. I am disappointed. Not that much of the world is reacting as though some of the people are on TikTok. I didn't think I would personally encounter the 4Bs. It's an online movement to cut men off from sex and cut their hair. It's just taken TikTok by storm.
I will not be responding to you. If you are a man, I will not be talking to you. I am going to be promoting the 4B movement from here on out. I don't care. Better scissors. My hair. Cutting it all off. Probably painting a target on my back here, but whatever. At least I live in a state right now that has all of our rights still. And we voted out Brandon Williams. Fuck that guy. Back to Texas. From whence he came. We also voted yes on Prop 1, which will codify into law some equal right protections in the New York State Constitution. So we did that at least. We are embarrassing on the world stage. Oh, God. I will not be giving my money to the beauty industry anymore. I will not be giving my money to anyone that helps support misogyny and the patriarchy and keeping women down and making women think that we need to look a certain way or be a certain way.
She will not be giving away anything to men. So I was a little disappointed. Not that I didn't encounter that in real life, but what I think I have encountered, boys, is I think I have seen my own Brooklyn brunch crew two-a-days. I think I have seen something that I did not expect to see. And what I've seen is the personalization of a vote, the personalization of disagreement. At the beginning of the end of the election, through the end of last week, I think it could have been said, well, the response to Donald Trump's election is a little bit muted. There's not protests in the street. But what I feel like that I've encountered now that I've been to New York is the simmering disappointment, but also a simmering anger. And I think this is the important point I'm getting to. A simmering personalization of politics. Friends who really see this as something between us in a relationship. If they do not know if they can maintain relationships with someone who voted for Donald Trump. It's really sad. I'm really disappointed. I've always considered, politics important, but not who you are. I never thought about it being an indictment of your moral character. I simply was capable of suggesting that you're wrong. But what's going on right now can threaten to end relationships, is threatening to end relationships. And it's being openly advocated for on MSNBC. I want to get into all that with story number one. She is the host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick.com. Tomi Lahren joins us now here on The Will Cain Show. Good morning, Tomi.
Great to talk to you. As you can tell, I have not cut off my hair. I have not gotten a septum piercing, which I consider to be the mark of the beast. I'm pretty happy this week, Will, and I'm enjoying the liberal meltdowns. I think Christmas has come early. I really get a kick out of these people absolutely losing their minds, even to a greater extent than normal. And you know what? I hope they keep it coming because it provides us so much entertainment, and it sure makes me smile every morning when I get to open up X, open up Instagram, and just watch these people absolutely lose their minds.
You know, Tomi, I have to admit, giving in to also the little devil on my shoulder, and I watched MSNBC for 36 hours after the results on Tuesday night. I wanted to watch The View. But I am, as I said, disappointed that so many people have placed politics at the top of their hierarchy, of their Maslow's pyramid of needs, that they see this as a dividing line in who they can maintain a personal relationship with, even family. In fact, I want you to listen to this. This was on MSNBC, and it's not simply crazies on TikTok. This is being advocated for those, at least, who are in pursuit of an MD.
Do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, you know, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going to a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why.
I think this is a product, Tomi, of two things. One, media, mainstream media and social media driving people literally insane. I think what we're looking at is a mass psychosis and insanity. I've lost my rights. But secondarily, people placing this above all else as though it's all that makes you as a human being. Not religion, not faith, not sports, not culture, not family, not friendships. All that matters is how you vote and whether or not you voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, so I am going to be a little bit more optimistic because I think that most of these people that are acting this way, I think they exist in two really distinct bubbles. Washington, D.C. media, maybe some New York media, and social media. I think that's it. I don't think these people exist in real life. I don't think they're going out on a daily basis interacting with folks. I don't think that they're playing sports. I don't think they're playing pickleball on the weekends. I don't think they're going out to the mall or going out to TJ Maxx or Nordstrom Rack on the weekend to find a good bargain. I think these people exist primarily either in media because they're making money to act this way and to advocate for extreme positions because it gives them sound bites, it gives them attention, which they love, or they exist solely on social media and they don't interact with humans. So when they say, oh, I'm going to cut my hair off or I'm not going to hang out with family members that voted for Trump, I don't know if the demand is there, Will. I don't know if people are knocking down their door to go date them. I don't know if they're even comfortable interacting with people. I think these are the people that wear masks in the airport to this day, and I don't really think they have much of a social life. I don't think they're really giving up much. I think that their social life consists of them talking to a camera and posting it and seeing how many views they can get because that's their validation. And I do think there's a psychosis there. I think they're very mad that Trump won, but I think more than that, I think they're just sad within themselves. I think that they're just angry, upset, bitter people. And you know what? I'd also like to say, well, these people have been in the majority. They've been the Democrat Party that's been in the White House for the last 4 years, and these people were miserable for the last 4 years. I didn't see these people excited for the last 4 years. They got everything that they wanted. They got Joe Biden. They got progressive policies. They got an open border. They got men and women's sports, and they were still angry. So now they're just a little angrier, I would suggest.
That's a great point about the psychosis that really spans administrations, spans policy, spans shifts in the culture. It's as though the anger and the resentment is core to the identity. It's not really about an outcome. There is no rainbow at the end of the road. It's always a road of angst because the angst is the identity. But I did believe like you, and I'm not suggesting that I've totally changed my position based upon one glorious weekend in New York City, but I did believe a little more like you that this was something, dominated by social media, exclusively within the television screens of mainstream media. But I did see, Tommy, and I have heard, and I know this about you, Tommy, which we share this in common. I have friends across the political spectrum based upon geographic diversity of where I've lived, and also because it's not been core to who I define myself as or others as. I don't go into every social setting going, are you a lib or are you conservative? I simply do not. It will come up and I will find it interesting. I will find it interesting regardless of which way it turns out. I'll have a debate with you if you're on the left. We'll laugh about the state of the world together if we're both on the right. But I did experience this, at least in part, Tommy, where it's like there's this personalization of it that A, is taking it really hard, and B, sort of patting themselves on the back for still interacting with someone that they feel like voted against their rights. And I don't really think that I would have reacted the same. I don't know how you would have felt, but if Donald Trump had lost, I would be disappointed. I would be very disappointed. But I do not think I would look at my fellow American and say, not only do I think you're sexist, racist, and misogynist, but I think that you and I can't be friends, and I need to cut you out of my family.
Yeah, I don't really have anybody in my life that would ever do that to me, whether they're conservative or liberal or somewhere in the middle. But I will tell you something interesting for me is I do have liberal friends who voted for Joe Biden, who voted for Hillary Clinton, and I haven't asked them what they did this go around, but I'll tell you this. I have a feeling they voted for Donald Trump, and I'll tell you why. They happen to live in Dallas, Texas, but they also happen to be Jewish. And I think all the things that went on in this country, especially for Jewish Americans who typically vote Democrat, I think this was a change, and they might not ever wear a MAGA hat. They might not ever admit that they voted for Donald Trump, but I really do think that for a lot of people, there were some things this election that changed their minds, and they might never actually tell me that, but I secretly believe there's a lot more Trump voters out there this go around, and we saw it really with this landslide victory. But I do feel like it's different. I remember 2017. I remember how angry people were. I remember the screaming at the sky in the safe spaces, and we're seeing some of that, but I just don't feel like it's the extent that it was back in 2016 and 2017. I think because this was such an overwhelming victory that even Democrat voters are having to look around and be like, holy crap, there's a lot of Republicans around me that I never knew were around me. And since I don't know who they are and where they are, I have to be a little bit more careful with projecting my psychosis. I think that's a good thing. And I think we're trending in the right direction.
So this is a fascinating conversation in that, are we seeing a divide on the left between the real world and the world that is broadcast? So on broadcast right now, for much of the left, there is a dismissal of this victory as an indictment of America, racist, bigoted, misogynist America. Juan Williams has a column up today at The Hill saying basically Latino men are machismo sexists, and that's what's explained the results in this election. You just pointed out your Jewish friends in Dallas. Donald Trump literally, no exaggeration, made gains with every single demographic group, meaning Latino men, Latino women. Everyone's going to talk about Latino men. He got 8 percentage points better among Latino women. He did better among black men. He did better among white women. He did better in every group, including Jews and Muslims. And despite all that evidence, on TV, there's no self-reflection. There's very little self-reflection. It's just triple down, quadruple down on the indictment of America. But do you think in the same way the psychosis is being broadcast, but it's not in your neighborhood, there is some self-reflection, maybe not on broadcast, but there's some self-reflection in your neighborhood on the left?
Oh, I certainly do. And, I wonder your thoughts on this. When I watch these people melt down and I watch them on a CNN panel or an MSNBC panel calling, saying a boy is a boy, calling that some kind of a slur, or I see people melting down and blaming white women as Joy Reid has done and saying that black women are, they're not going to be in the fight anymore with white women. And I see all this. What part of you thinks this is an act? Because I watch these people and I do think that there's a psychosis. I do think that Trump broke their brains, but I think a lot of it is that they're playing a part. I don't think that they're actually as angry, and I don't think they hate America as much as they proclaim to hate America. I really don't. I think they're playing a part because they know that that's what they have to do to cut through, I guess, the vanilla of everything else. And I don't believe these people are actually as disturbed as they appear to be. I think they're doing it to get the attention. And I'm wondering if you think that there's somewhat of that, especially since you spent your time in media at other places that weren't conservative. Do you think some of these people are maybe just putting it on for the camera?
So I think that the left is kind of comprised by two different groups of people that are having this battle out in some ways on not only CNN, but on MSNBC. And that is, there's the politicos of the world. This is the Ezra Kleins of the world. This is the Joe Scarboroughs of the world, who are going to look at this to some extent and see the electoral loss and understand from an X's and O's standpoint how they need to do better and where they had failed. Then there is the group on the left that identity politics is core to their identity. Now, these people haven't always been part of the leadership movement of the left. And I think these people ascended beginning with Barack Obama and reached their apex basically during George Floyd. We saw it not just on political television, but on sports television, for example. And those people, I think it's almost impossible to answer, Tommy, because the identity politics is core to their own individual identity. Like, I think that is truly how they see the world, and doesn't matter. It's impervious to data and even to a loss. They see the world as a racist, through the lens of identity. And I think that means as a racist. But it's also part of their brand, to your point. And if you built your brand on this and it's part of your identity, you kind of have to go down with the Titanic. You're the captain of this ship. What do you have? You don't become Nate Silver from being Joy Reid. You're just going to have to be Joy Reid.
Yeah, I think so. And I just think that, there's some of that on the right as well. And I've done everything I can to reject that because I don't like being a caricature of myself or playing a role. That's why I've always caught so much heat for being, a pro-choice conservative Trump supporter, which, by the way, I think pro-choice Trump supporters helped Donald Trump win this election. I think there's a lot of white suburban women who are kind of like myself, who might be more on the pro-choice side, but voted for Donald Trump. I think that's a large segment of the gains that he made with women. But that's a side point. I do think you're right. I think some of these people really take it personally, but I also think that they're worried that the Democrat Party is going to abandon them. And I think people that put trans issues above everything else, or they put extreme abortion views above everything else, or they put race above everything else. I think that they're realizing that maybe some of the leaders of their party understand if they want to win again, that they can't lead with woke anymore. And I think that they're crying out like, don't forget us, don't forget us. And they're terrified that the Democrat Party might have come to Jesus moment and they might get sane again by the midterm elections. And they don't want to be forgotten. Like, they don't want woke to die. And they're seeing woke slowly die in front of their eyes. And without it, to your point, I don't know what they do. I don't think they could breathe without woke.
Now, on to a story that I think is symbolic of the type of governance you might have gotten from Kamala Harris. Reports are that Kamala Harris raised $1 billion for her campaign for the presidency. She spent roughly, I believe the number is $1.037 billion. I think I have those numbers right. She is roughly $20 to $37 million in debt today after a campaign that lasted 3 to 4 months, spending $1 billion. I read $6 million a day on salary alone, Tommy. She spent $100,000 to recreate the Call Her Daddy set in Washington, D.C., which you and I have been in broadcasting and production. I honestly don't know how you spent $100,000 recreating that set. It's not a complicated set. It's not intricate. It looks like a college dorm room. And they spent $100,000 rebuilding that set. Oprah charged her $1 million for their interview, Tommy. $1 million paid to Oprah. And everyone's pointing out, hey, if you're afraid of the ascendance of Hitler, maybe you do that one for free. How do they spend $1 billion?
How do you spend $1 billion and still lose? But I think also this just reaffirms for me that the American people made the right choice with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the king of just earned media. I mean, he's doing things, he's getting attention, he always has. He's using social media, he's using podcasts, he's not paying for a lot of these, he's just him. And that just goes to show that he's a businessman and he knows how to run the country like a business. And you've got Kamala over there, whose biggest economic policy was price fixing, and they blew through $1 billion plus and they still lost. Like, that just shows me that you don't know how to manage money. And the fact that you would pay that much money to Oprah and to build a Call Her Daddy set while people are struggling in the aftermath of hurricanes, by the way, that was right when she recorded that and taped that, was when people were literally dying and drowning. I think it just goes to show how tone deaf she is, her entire campaign is, the Democrat apparatus is. And I think people that are actually smart in the Democrat Party, even people like Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, I think they looked at the Kamala campaign and they know that this was just a disaster from start to finish. And I don't think they're surprised at all at how badly she lost.
I mean it. If Oprah believes what she sold the American public, that Donald Trump will ruin our democracy, that he's a fascist, that he's the next coming of Hitler, why would you charge Kamala $1 million for your interview? It just exposes, as so many times we learn this lesson over and over, Tommy, it's just all a fraud. It's just all a fraud. You never even believed he was Hitler.
Oh, not only that, but, you know, this is also just the hypocrisy of the left on perfect display. Does Oprah really need more? Like, does she really need that little extra? How much money does she have? How many homes does she have? How many homes has she opened up to the illegal immigrants that this party wants to welcome across our southern border? You know, is she paying 100% in taxes? Because, you know, if you really go by the liberal worldview, it's that everyone should pay their fair share. So not only should you have not charged Kamala, who was your second coming of Christ to save the nation, you shouldn't have charged her to do an interview, which she botched horribly, by the way. But you should also just be opening up your pocketbook to all of these people that you want to serve, because you want to saddle it on the middle class that actually can't afford it, but then you're charging $1 million for an interview. I mean, the left could not own itself anymore if it tried, and it's so blatantly obvious to people. Now, the question is, do they change? Do they change course? Do they drop the celebrity endorsements? Do they stop having Beyonce come out and speak for 4 minutes and pay her just an extreme amount of money? No, I don't think that they do. I think that they triple down on that because I don't think they know how to do anything else.
I'm going to get into that in just a moment here, coming up on the Will Cain Show. The shift in what is cool and why it is so important to be cool on the left. But I believe you brought up natural disasters a moment ago, Tommy. So reporting out of the Daily Wire shows that a FEMA official instructed FEMA employees during Hurricane Helene in Florida to skip homes when you're doing your site survey and you're going door to door and you're asking about the needs and what has been lost and how can they help at FEMA. Instructed FEMA employees skip homes with Trump signage in the yard. If they had Trump signage in the yard, no help from FEMA. Now, I just want to point this out as well, Tommy. Here's a New York Times headline from just a few weeks ago. Trump's false claims about the federal response to Hurricane Helene. The subhead reads as follows. The former president falsely accused the Biden administration of spending disaster funds on migrants and neglecting areas that had voted for Republicans and ignoring a call from a Republican governor. They dismissed that as a conspiracy and a lie from Donald Trump. Now reporting from the Daily Wire, that's exactly what happened at FEMA.
Yeah, I don't expect a retraction anytime soon, but there's been so many incidents of this, we almost have to go back. It wasn't that long ago, but we have to flip through all the conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. But that was, you know, a great one. There were so many people that were absolutely lambasting conservatives that were talking about the plight of people in North Carolina, worried that they wouldn't be able to get out and vote, worried about what the FEMA coverage would be. And we'd hear reports from people on the ground. You, obviously on Fox and Friends Weekend, heard it, you know, day after day, covering this, that people were like, where is the government? We haven't seen anybody. Where are they at? They're staying in hotels. We're sitting here without electricity. Where are the people? And time again, when you'd hear, you'd hear real stories from people who are truly suffering and wondering where the government was, we would absolutely just be chastised for bringing that up. Like that was misinformation, disinformation. And here, once again, we've got somebody who is telling people, hey, avoid those Trump houses. And another point to this story that I think is interesting, and it's a small detail, but when I saw this come out over the weekend and I saw like the news headlines about it from different sources, the little clip, the little graphic that they had to talk about this incident of this FEMA worker, it had just like a generic photo of FEMA on it, or it had the director of FEMA on it, who happens to be a white woman, the administrator. They didn't show the actual woman who did it. They're going to great lengths to keep this woman's identity secret. I wonder why. Well, I wonder why.
Well, speaking of this idea of getting your news from the New York Times, getting false news, and in the conversation you and I have been having about whether or not there's something different happening on the ground on the left and what's happening online or on TV on the left, I want to share with you this clip, Tomi, from David Pakman. He is a YouTuber on the left. He's been here before on the Cain Show, and he's complaining basically about accountability. Basically, the audience has said, enough of your disinformation. Watch this, Tomi.
There is something going on that is terrifying me. When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers compared to where we were last night. What is it that is going on? Here is a graphic. As you can see, subscribers just go up, and they are down. It is not just YouTube subscribers. We are seeing record cancellations of paid memberships. Record cancellations. These are the people that keep the show running.
Now, Tomi, I don't know if this has caused him to look in the mirror, but I've been talking to you today about the conversations I've had with those friends who are on the left. My biggest takeaway is you've got to improve your information bubble. You've got to improve your information flow because it has given you a false view of the world. You're not living in reality. And that's part of why it feels this way this week for you on the left, because you're blindsided. You believe that your rights are, by the way, going to be rescinded the day after a presidential election. And it's driving you to insanity. This right here, if this is true, if this is happening, this is a pivot towards sanity, I think, on the left.
Yeah, I also think that there are folks who are Democrat voters or even Kamala supporters who felt like Kamala was going to win and they were convinced that Kamala was going to win. Of course, her team was going to tell everybody that they felt like she was going to win. That's what a campaign team does. But they've been watching liberal media. They've been watching the YouTubers. They've been watching the liberal podcasters, the Pod Save America type people. And they were just convinced that there's just no way that Donald Trump could win because Donald Trump's a fascist. He's Hitler. What about the Madison Square Garden rally? The Puerto Ricans hate Donald Trump. Black Americans hate Donald Trump. Women hate Donald Trump. They were just so convinced that Kamala had to be the victor in this election. And then when Donald Trump won, and he won just so overwhelmingly, I think a lot of those folks felt fooled and they felt misled. And that might be why they're rejecting some of these podcasters or YouTubers on the left, because they feel like, wow, I've been watching you and I felt like you were leading me in the right direction. And I feel lied to and I feel misled for clicks and views and subscribers. And I think that's why a lot of these people, they don't know who to trust anymore. I don't expect them to come over to conservative media necessarily or watch Fox News, but maybe give them a few years and let Trump bring down their grocery prices and secure the border. And maybe, just maybe, those people will be new subscribers on the right.
You know, that's exactly what I heard this weekend, Tomi, on Fox and Friends. On Fox and Friends this weekend, I had a former Kamala Harris surrogate. Her name is Lindy Lee. She raised, I don't know how much, but she told me she is a fundraiser and a surrogate, has been for Kamala Harris. And she came to Fox to tell her story about the way, she's not just a viewer of David Pakman, right? This is like a champion of Kamala Harris. And I want you to watch this. This is how she feels now, telling this to Fox.
This is just an epic disaster. This is a $1 billion disaster. Actually, it was $1 billion, 18 million, I think, right? There were $20 million or $18 million in in debt.
Right.
It's incredible. And I raised millions of that. I have friends that I have to be accountable to and to explain what happened because I told them it was a margin of error race. I was promised, Jen O'Malley Dillon promised all of us that Harris would win. She even put videos out saying that Harris would win. I believed her. My donors believed her. And so they wrote massive checks. I feel like a lot of us were misled.
So that's within the campaign. To your point, campaigns are going to paint a false reality. But my hope, Tomi, is I truly do hope that people will start to understand that the New York Times and the Washington Post, that CBS and ABC are no different. And I mean this. They're no different than MSNBC. The only difference between MSNBC and CBS is the amount of froth around the muzzle of the barking dog. That's it. They are both suffering from rabies.
Yeah, and I would also say, too, that a lot of these people that work at these networks or maybe even work in the campaign circles, I don't think they talk to regular people. I don't think they talk to average people out there. I think they talk to their friends and they talk to people who think like they do, but they don't think they really get out, and I don't think they actually talk to people in Pennsylvania. I don't think they have conversations with people in the Midwest or in Wisconsin. I think they talk to the people who already agree with them, who feel the same way, and that's why they were all so convinced. And you'd think they'd learn their lesson from 2016 when they thought Hillary was going to win. You know, they had an excuse that go around, Will. They could say they never saw Donald Trump coming, right? Like, he was an outlier. It's like, oh my God, this reality star from The Apprentice who has all these golden buildings, he's going to come in and beat Hillary Clinton. People were shocked. And, you know, you give them a little grace for that. But they didn't see him coming the second time around after they had all this time to prepare. That just tells me that they don't talk to regular folks, and maybe they don't go grocery shopping.
I love the videos. There's montages going around. They date back to 2016, but include most recently as well, saying all of these people, Donald Trump will not be president of the United States. He will not be president of the United States, almost willing it into existence. Well, he is going to be president of the United States for a second time. And finally, I want to hit on this with you, Tomi. Trump is beginning to put together his team. Things are already happening. I mean, Hamas is already making noises about looking for a peace deal with Israel. I believe there are reports now that Trump has already spoken to Vladimir Putin. The world is beginning to reposition to the United States led by Donald Trump. And it looks like he's turned to, we know, one of the biggest misogynists as painted in the mainstream media, has appointed the first woman ever in U.S. history as chief of staff, Susie Wiles, who, by the way, as a quick aside, did you know Susie Wiles, daughter of Pat Summerall, famed NFL broadcaster. Susie Wiles will be chief of staff. It looks like Tom Homan is coming back as border czar. And then there's a lot of discussion about who is going to be there for Secretary of State, maybe Marco Rubio. What are your thoughts right now on the people around Trump?
Well, I love this team because this is a Trump team. This is not like what it was in 2016 in the transition, where Donald Trump was the new guy and he had to rely on all these kind of establishment Republicans. And that was kind of the mandate, is that, hey, you know, this guy, we don't know what he's going to do. He's not political. We need to surround him with RNC types. And that was the old RNC, of course. That's what we need to surround him with. I'm not saying some of those people weren't good people, but a lot of them were not good people. And they weren't Trump people. And they weren't Trump agenda people. They were not America First people. They were typical swamp people that just happened to have an R behind their name. Well, Donald Trump learned his lesson, and he's had many years to learn it. And now he's like, no, I'm bringing in my guys. I'm bringing in the people that I know we're going to get the job done. I love all the people. I love Stephen Miller. You know, obviously the new announcement today, deputy chief of staff, great choice there. Susie Wiles, great choice. Elise Stefanik, UN, great choice. Although I don't think we should be a part of the UN personally. And then on to Tom Homan, who I think is the best pick of all. Honestly, I wish he would have been DHS. Even more than borders are. I wish he would have even gotten a bigger role, because that's how great I think he is at this. But they're all people who are not going to make excuses, and they're not going to cry their tears and clutch their pearls. They're going to get the job done. So I don't think that he could have made better selections thus far, and I expect more as the weeks go on.
All right. She's kicking off here in just a little bit over at Outkick.com. It'll be Tomi Lahren is Fearless, and we always love having Tomi here on the Will Cain Show. Thank you so much, Tomi.
Great to talk to you, Will. And as a last point, I did see you stand up and dance earlier, and I believe you're wearing basketball shorts, and I respect the hustle of the work-from-home basketball shorts for television.
It's not basketball shorts, but it is shorts underneath this shirt from Born Primitive, former Navy SEAL Bear Handlon, who in just a moment is going to be on the Will Cain Show talking about this type of wear and how you can give back to vets. But thank you, Tomi, for the wardrobe endorsement. Thanks, Tomi.
Of course. I'll talk to you later, Will.
Check her out. Tomi Lahren is Fearless coming up in just a little bit here at Outkick.com. Last week, we had show after show, massive numbers, new audience. I hope many of you stayed with us this week, as what we're going to do now is something we weren't capable of doing last week, where we had, huge guest after huge guest, which is to make you the guest. We're going to bring in your comments as we discuss, when did the left lose cool? Next on the Will Cain Show. I don't think it's important, and yet I recognize it is important to America. Cool. And the left. It's the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. We're always here every Monday through Thursday at YouTube and on Facebook. We'd love for you to subscribe on YouTube. The subscription button is in the text description underneath this live stream. Also, underneath this live stream is a comment section where you can join and become a member of the militia. Like Jeanette Byron, who says, wonderful opportunity to downsize government. I'm excited to see what Trump and his administration can do in the next 2 years. Jim Dandy says, the kooks are worried people will ignore them now. Talking about much of the reaction on screens, on your phone screen and on your television screen on the left. Bardowski says, and these are the same smart and intelligent people while we're the uneducated. Got it. And then finally, DC Killing Spree says, shave that hair so we know who to avoid. Very good. LMAO. Not only is there discussion about shaving their heads and cutting off their boyfriends or their imaginary boyfriends from sex, but cutting off relationships and beginning to wear masks so they can identify one another. The septum nose ring, the big round glasses, the mask, coming back to be what they have always been, signifiers. Not medical, but fashion statements about where you stand on the political spectrum. Speaking of fashion statements, so let me bring the boys in New York and Florida for just a moment here on the Will Cain Show. This is something that's been banging around in my head, and I actually think it's huge. I'm not here to tell you that I think it's important to me, but I have to reconcile that I think it's important for America. This is what I mean. For most of my life, and I'm a bit older than both of you, we don't have young establishment James with us today, but for most of my life, cool has been the sole province of the left. The left has owned all the channels of what is cool. They've owned fashion. If you wanted to dress in a certain way, you looked at someone who dressed a certain way, and they were almost inevitably on the left. They owned movies. Hollywood dominated, not just everyone's vision of what might be cool, but your dreams and your aspirations, and people moved out west and wanted to live in Los Angeles. Music was defined by guys like Billy Armstrong and Green Day, and you didn't want to be an American idiot. Now, I obviously did not end up on the left. The way that I ended up, and I've talked about this, as someone who would be self-described as conservative, libertarian, on the right, is I got there through two primary mechanisms. One, I read Ayn Rand, and it was very formative in my life. I read Atlas Shrugged and I read Fountainhead, and those were very philosophically formative for me and how I looked at myself and how I looked at fellow man. And second, I went to law school at the University of Texas, and I began to understand, yes, the Constitution, but the way that ideas fit with one another. Like, if I believe X, but I also believe Y, what happens if they cancel each other out? What if you can't reconcile them with one another? How can I hold two contradictory beliefs? And those two forces drove me to see the world through what I would like to think is a logical prism, certainly a principled prism. I began to understand tradition. And as I've grown even more in life, I've understood the value of religion. And all of those things have led me to the right. It was never important to me, and I would say it's still not important to me, to be cool. But it is very important to the left to be cool. All that we've talked about in the past, was sort of like the cultural foundation of the power of the left. Because I think if your ideas, if your political philosophy, progressivism is always about what's next, what's on trend, how are you ahead, then you have to be defining what's cool to be next. And if you don't have control over what's cool, how can you get people to buy in to progressivism? And something has changed. And the three of us have talked about this on the Cain Show. I think it's cool in every way to be on the right. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you that means it's cool to be a Republican or that means it's cool to be conservative, because I don't think it's deep. And I don't think that what's cool is principled. But if you look at frat boys and country music and even fashion, if you look at the rise of like the Bussin' with the Boys Barstool podcast world with Donald Trump, that's defining what's cool. And I don't think that's a big deal to the right. It's not a big deal to me, but I do think that's a big deal to the left to lose the power of cool. What do you think, Two-A-Days?
Well, I was just wondering, do you think it changed for exactly that reason? Because for so long it has been on the left that everyone, they wanted that change. They wanted something new. To be, younger and conservative was never a thing when I was growing up. So now I think like to be opposite, it's kind of cool now to do the opposite thing, which is out of the zeitgeist.
I think it's a product of absurdity. I just think the left became an absurd version of itself. You know the old saying, it's
totally
like,
true.
If you're conservative before the age of 25, you don't have a heart. And if you're liberal after the age of 25, you don't have a brain. That's the old saying. Now what we see is a huge rise in people under the age of 25 who are conservative. And I do think a lot of it is reactionary, meaning if the left became an absurdity of itself, then much of this is like, well, I'm not that. I'm not septum ring. I'm not gender fluidity. I'm not everything is racist. I'm not pronouns. And I do think a lot of that from the left seeded what is cool to the right. And Tinfoil, I'll just say before I go to you, you need evidence of this? All the people that used to define what is cool, not only today are impotent and powerless, but I don't think they're even seen of as cool. What I mean by that is Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Oprah, Beyonce, Cardi B, all of the celebrity endorsements that got behind Kamala Harris not only had no power to influence people, I think people kind of laughed at them. I don't think people looked at him and like, ooh, that's cool. I want to listen to Cardi B. Tinfoil.
I think that, Dan has a really good point, but I think what happened is like if you were around 20 years ago and you were a Democrat and you closed your eyes and you saw that this candidate, a nameless candidate 20 years from now is going to run on this platform that Donald Trump ran on, I think that you're looking at a center-left platform. I think they would have been very happy to have that candidate elected president. I think that absurdity that the left went to has pushed so many people from the left to the right, and that's why the right is cool now, is not necessarily that conservatism has become cool. I think that it was just the absurdity levels have just gotten out of control.
And here's what's important about what you're saying, and I do think this is important. The two big takeaways from this is not just, neither of them are a discussion of like, oh, let's talk about what is cool. It's like two things. One, Andrew Breitbart used to talk about culture is downstream from, or upstream from politics. Politics is downstream from culture. This is important because, one, the left, as I've said already, needs to be in control of what is cool to continue to push progressivism. It's untethered from principle. That's just by definition, progressivism is untethered from tradition and principle. And therefore, in order to have power, it has to have the irrational emotional attachment to bring people in. And I think being cool, fitting in, being hip, being on trend, not being stodgy, not being Tucker Carlson of the 90s bow tie, not being the dad in Footloose telling kids to quit dancing was very important to the left. That's how you sold progressivism. But the second big takeaway I'm offering you here today is this, that there's been a lot of wins for Donald Trump and for the right. Be careful with now being cool because it is untethered to principle and it does go back and forth. And a lot of these people maybe they're the Joe Rogan types, maybe they're the Theo Von types, maybe they're the Bussin' with the Boys types, are here today but could be gone tomorrow if what is cool shifts. And that's why I do think Breitbart is right, that politics is downstream from culture and why the right needs to play in culture. But you have to be able to migrate people from being cool into being principled, into understanding how the left became an absurd version of itself, because it was inevitable. It was always going to be the case. And you have to be tied to principle, and that's how you keep this longer coalition on the right. All right, coming up, it's Veterans Day. And I have a very cool story to share with you and something very cool to show you. I'm going to bring in a Marine Corps sergeant and a former Navy SEAL for a story and a movement in just a moment here on The Will Cain Show. A very cool story, a cool movement, and a cool box I'm about to open for you here on The Will Cain Show. Streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, and the Fox News Facebook page. Big audience with us again today. Glad to have you after last week's huge editions of The Will Cain Show. Make sure you hit subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or rejoin us every Monday through Thursday right here on The Will Cain Show. But joining me now, as it is Veterans Day, two incredibly impressive gentlemen. We have Bear Handlon. He's a former Navy SEAL, co-founder and CEO of Born Primitive, a veteran-owned apparel company. I'm wearing Born Primitive as we speak here today on The Will Cain Show. And Eddie Wright, he's a Marine veteran, former sergeant, never former, always a Marine, always a sergeant. He's also with Semper and the America Fund, and we're glad to have them both here on The Will Cain Show. Thank you, fellas.
Thanks for having us.
Eddie, Bear and I go back. I know some of Bear's story, and I want to get into Bear's story, and I want to get into what I have in front of me here today on The Will Cain Show. But you're both here today with a purpose, and we're going to talk about that purpose for everyone watching, because if you're listening or watching, I promise you, you will want to be, and you can be part of that purpose here on Veterans Day. But I would love to start with your story, if we could, Eddie. Tell me a little bit about what brings you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm, as you know, I'm a combat wounded Marine. I was serving with 1st Reconnaissance Battalion. I was in Fallujah in 2004. I was caught in an ambush, and during the course of that ambush, I caught a rocket propelled grenade, which took my hands off, unfortunately, but that began a long journey and a relationship with the Semper and America's Fund. So I've been involved, or I've been a part of that family since 2004.
And Eddie, I believe as you showed us here, for anyone listening on podcast or on radio who might not be able to see here, Eddie showed us both of his hands, both of which are missing. And if I have this correct, Eddie, but that wasn't the end of your story when it came to your service for the United States of America.
No, sir. I was able to heal up, and the Marine Corps found a position, in our tradition of having each other's backs. They let me go back to work. So my last year in the Marine Corps, after I healed up at the Naval Hospital in Bethesda and Walter Reed, I served as an instructor at the basic school in Quantico, Virginia, at the Martial Arts Center of Excellence. And that was a great way to round out my career and go out with my boots on, so to speak. An honor for me.
And why was that, Eddie, why was that so important to continue on after 14 months, I believe, was it, at Walter Reed?
Yes, sir.
I think I have this correct, Eddie. You're one of the only double amputees to continue in his service after suffering that kind of injury. Why was that so important to you?
Well, for me, I'd always wanted to be a Marine since I was a child. And to be a reconnaissance Marine was my dream as well. And so to have that, I'm fortunate enough to have been able to achieve that, and I was doing that. But, you had the carpet yanked out from underneath you, and, my dream was cut short. And it really meant a lot for the Marine Corps to see value and purpose in me, even though I was missing my hands. And it was a way to give back, because the Marine Corps gave me so much in life.
Well, and we're going to get into how you're giving back now. So is Bear, by the way. Bear Handlon is a former Navy SEAL. As I mentioned, he's CEO of Born Primitive. I've known Bear. Bear was on Fox and Friends this weekend. When you left, Bear, everybody was saying, did we just have on Chris Hemsworth? Not sure. Maybe Thor was on Fox and Friends because he looks like a literal superhero. You know, Bear, we've never talked about this, and I don't want to put you in a position because I know that you're kind of not, you don't talk as much as other guys about your service in the past. But let's, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of start, like, what took you to being, like, what took you down the path? I mean, I've hung out with your brother. You and I have been to UFC fights, but we never talked. What took you down the path of being a Navy SEAL?
Pretty simple. When I was in 8th grade, 9/11 happened, and that planted the seed that instant that I wanted to eventually, go down that path. And eventually, I went to college, so I delayed the dream a little bit, but I ended up doing it when I got out. And just wanted to have the opportunity to serve my country, like I know a lot of guys and girls did after 9/11, and it was a privilege to have the opportunity.
Do you guys, I'm going to ask you both, because when, Veterans Day, for a lot of people, it's a day off, right? It's a day off, perhaps, maybe. I don't even think everybody gets it off from work, from school. But before we get into what, again, both of you are doing here in your quests, both of your individual quests, but there's a lot of overlap to continue to help veterans, as Americans out there, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I think it's pretty low now of number of, and I'm one of them, Americans who have served in the military, meaning this is a pretty small percentage of our population now that is on the front wall defending America. What is it, Bear, to you that you would hope Americans would understand on Veterans Day?
Well, honestly, and I think I can probably speak for Eddie here too. Like, we definitely appreciate the messages on Veterans Day. I've had friends texting me all morning and it's been awesome. But what I've said, on a few different interviews is I would like America to think about the families of veterans. And thank them because, for guys like me and Eddie, like we got to live our, a young man's dream, right? We're running around with, a machine gun and getting to jump out of planes and things like that. That's what we signed up for, right? It's the families back home that are carrying the real burden, in my opinion. Particularly, those moms that got 3 kids running around and trying to get them to daycare and their sick kids and broken washing machines and things like that. That would be the message I would want to convey. We have a lot of active duty spouses here at Born Primitive, so we get to see that firsthand. And I think those are the forgotten heroes. We appreciate the messages, but give them some love too.
I agree with
Eddie,
what Bear has to say. I'm glad you bring that up. It's true. Sometimes people forget that and in my opinion, and now I get to speak for you, Bear, if you don't mind, we have to say thank you for your service to the spouses and the families that support us because they're also serving. And that's what I like about the Semper Fi and America's Fund because they don't forget about the children, the wives, the husbands, the moms, the dads, the families. It's one big family for all of us. We take care of each other.
So let's do that now. Talk to me about the fund, Eddie. You guys are doing some amazing things. You're helping people after their service in need. And there's also, by the way, I think a special opportunity for everybody watching and listening now through the end of the year. So tell me a little bit about the Semper Fi Fund.
Well, the Semper Fi Fund was founded by military spouses. It's mostly staffed by military spouses. They understand the problems that we have and our needs. And, it's not just immediate care or assistance for one particular moment. That really helps out. But in the long run, we still fight this battle. And for me, it's been 20 years since my injuries, 2004 in Fallujah. And life happens. And some of us have injuries and we go through things. And, things can come up on you when you don't realize it. Emergencies or perhaps, you have thoughts and issues that come up and haunt you. And it could be 5, 10, 15 years later, but the fund sticks with you. It's not just a one-time assistance. It's a lifetime commitment. And it's important that we keep the fund in our minds as we go on, even in peacetime, because of that. And also because, God forbid, we have future conflicts.
And as I mentioned, you got something special going on right now. So the annual match campaign, it just kicked off for the Semper Fi Fund, right? And so you have the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation and PXG matching every donation made to the fund up to $10 million.
That's right. Very generous.
So I donate $1 million right now. They match $1 million.
They will. Go for it.
Well, I realized as it was coming out of my mouth that I put it in the first person. I might have got over my skis a little bit right there on a million. But,
but if
maybe somebody
just
watching
donates what they can, we all add up as a community, our whole country. We can make it happen. Let's max
Right.
it out.
Absolutely. Now, this is also going on, and Bear, Handlon, and Born Primitive are doing this right now through tonight. So first, Bear, tell us about what you're doing through tonight at Born Primitive.
Yes, we're pledging 100% of profits from our site. That's at bornprimitive.com to pay off $5 million in veteran medical bill debt. So we paid off the first 2.5. We wrote a check in August to get it going. And we're trying to rally everyone to try to get that number to 5 million by midnight Pacific tonight. And, Will, you guys really helped getting us on with Fox yesterday. And there's been a lot of people helping to amplify the message. So I think if we carry this momentum into the evening, we'll get there. And I've been able to call a lot of these recipients, and it's been absolutely incredible to kind of hear their real-time responses, finding out the good news that medical bill that was looming over their head and the creditors are calling them and their credit score gets tanked is no longer, particularly as we go right into the holidays. We know that brings a lot of financial stress for families. So we're pretty fired up about it, but we got to end strong.
That's great.
So you're paying off medical debt. You're paying off medical debt from all the profits, whatever profits through tonight at Born Primitive. So I got home last night, Bear. I want to share this. Eddie can see, I hope Eddie can see in his return. Everybody watching. I didn't expect this, Bear. First of all, I don't know what you're spending in shipping, but somebody over there, like the CEO, like you need to figure out what's going on with your shipping bill, because I got this box in the mail. Okay, this thing, I don't know what it weighs, but I'm going 40, a good 40 pounds, and that I feel bad for the UPS guy. But all right, I'm gonna see if I can do this where people can see. This is a wood box. It's engraved on the top. Says "We the People." It's beautiful. It smells awesome, by the way, in the living room. And then you open it, and I'm just gonna show you. You can't order this. I need to make that clear. This is not for sale, right, Bear?
Yeah, all orders over 150 today automatically enter you to potential. We're giving away one, so you can't buy it. But if you shop the site and support the give back cause, you'll be automatically entered.
All right, look at this. You open up this big box. Okay, first of all, you've got editions of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, I believe. Yeah, Bill of Rights right here. Then inside you've got 2 pairs of shoes. You got the Betsy Ross flag workout shoes, red, white, and blue. You can see the Betsy Ross flag there on the heel of the shoe. And you got the Don't Tread on Me edition as well, black and yellow, and there's the Don't Tread on Me snake. And then here was the coolest part of the package I got, Bear. Flintlock rifle, which I do not know if it's operational. My son wanted to know immediately, can we pack some gunpowder into this and find out?
Hey,
Isn't
Will,
that
I got
awesome?
the answer for you
Hey,
right
look at
here.
that.
If you look at my screen, it works.
I do.
It works.
Yes. No, does it really?
Yeah, we got to make one
It's got
modification, so that kept it legal for shipping. But yes, it is a workable pistol if with one tweak. So I can get with you on that.
It is incredible, this whole box. And by the way, here's a little bit of oak embedded into it from the USS Constitution. And you've got a quote from Benjamin Franklin here on the box on the importance of freedom of speech. Never been more important to point that out here in the U.S. So this is awesome stuff. I wear a lot of Born Primitive. The shirt I'm wearing now, T-shirts, workout gears, a lot of cool stuff from a company that's taking care of veterans. It's got to be going good over there at Born Primitive, Bear.
Yes, yeah, it's been incredible. We have so many people that are sharing this, particularly on social media. That's kind of how it goes viral. And as we've done a version of this every year, so our customers kind of expect it, and we rally them right before the holiday. But this is by far our largest impact to date. I mean, $5 million in debt is absolutely absurd, but in the best way, right? And we're just very grateful that our customers support this, and we have people like you helping us amplify the message, and hopefully this kind of brings a message of unity, at a pretty divided time. And I personally think as Americans, we need to be helping each other and not necessarily relying on the government to solve our problems. So hopefully we're setting an example for other companies to follow. And it's been a wild 96 hours. I'm running on fumes right now, but we got a little bit longer to go to get over the goal line.
You know, Eddie, when Bear was talking about why he wanted to become a SEAL, and he's talking about we get to live the dream, it's the families, you smiled and started laughing when he's talking about, we get to jump out of airplanes and carry machine guns. I think that something, here you are today, so I can anticipate the answer to your question, but I think I want to ask it because I think that a lot of people would think this up to themselves. I also think they'd think about it for their sons, to follow down this path, like how it's turned out. You lost both your hands, Eddie, right? Would you do it all over again?
Of course I would. And you'll hear almost every veteran you talk to will say the same thing because it's a labor of love. It's a passion. I feel I was put on this earth to do that job. I wouldn't change a thing. And when one door closes, another door opens. And I've met so many beautiful and wonderful people because of my injuries that I wouldn't have met before. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to be an American. And I love the support that Americans show. And this is one thing that we all can come together, like Bear said, and stick together. We help each other out, regardless of whatever your background is or whatever your beliefs are. We all are in this fight together. And I'm very proud. And it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was great.
I like you highlighting that part. And not only would you do it again, I love you highlighting back to me. And I'm proud, as you should be, of what you've done. You paid an incredible price. And I think people always look at the price. And I think what's good about what you're highlighting for is, but the price also came with a reward. Whether or not that reward is internal, whether or not it's the relationships you still have in your life, or that reward is knowing who you are and what you've offered to this country. It's easy to see. It's physically capable of being seen, the price that you paid. But I think it's important for us to hear the reward that you got as well for serving America.
True. And you know what? We don't see ourselves as victims. I know a lot of people, they have big hearts and they really feel for us. They have empathy. But you know what? We hold our heads up high. I'm very proud. I'm sure Bear's very proud of his service too. And people like the Simplifying America's Fund and the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation, they're leading from the front and leading from example. And they make it easy for us to help each other. And they
I didn't grow up in a military family. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, they literally save lives. I've been through some tough times, and sometimes it's dark out there, and you're tired, and you've been on a long ruck, so to speak. And you don't want to quit, but man, you just don't know how long it's going to take. You just want a little breath of fresh air. And that's when they come through. When you least expect it, they'll call you. Caseworkers are like family members. And it's almost like they have ESP. Just right when you need it, you'll get a random phone call. How are you doing, Eddie? Do you need anything? How's it going? And they can help lift you up in those moments of despair. And I don't know if I would still be here for my 13-year-old daughter if I didn't have good Americans and good people that supported me when I needed help. And I want to say, if you don't mind, Will, that if there are any veterans listening or spouses or family members, if you think you don't deserve it or somebody else deserves it more, don't think that. Reach out. And if somebody doesn't reach out to you, reach out to the fund. They're here to help us. And it's wonderful to be a part of that organization.
So I appreciate you doing that, talking about it from the veterans' perspective and talking to veterans. Let me talk to anyone who's maybe not a veteran, and that is I didn't grow up in a military family. And so as such, I didn't grow up ingrained in a military culture. And one of the great pleasures of my life in working at Fox has been the opportunity to get to know guys like both of you and others who have. And I think that what you both showed us here today in specific ways is ways that we can help having not served, how we can help those that do. Like you can be a part of this. You can be a part of the Semper Fi Fund. You can give to it. You can, shop at Born Primitive and give back today and help these guys, help them with medical bills, help them, as Eddie's pointed out, and all the things that is being done there at the Semper Fi Fund. And honestly, we owe it. I mean, because we didn't. They did. So we owe it now to do what we can. I mean it. A real pleasure to have the opportunity to get to know both of you. Eddie, thanks for sharing your story today with the Will Cain Show. And for anyone listening, Eddie, what do they do right now? Where do they go if they want to help with the Semper Fi Fund?
You can go to thefund.org fund.org/match and check it out. And if you want to do a little background research about the Simplifying America's Fund, you'll find that it's an A+ rated charity. They're very responsible in their stewardship of the donations. It's a great organization. So check it out, thefund.org/match, please.
Awesome. All right. And Bear, bornprimitive.com today.
Yes.
Shop, give back.
And ends at midnight Pacific tonight. We got everything, something for everyone: workout apparel, tactical, hunting, athleisure, shoes. You already named it. So if you want to support the cause, head to the site. I think we'll get there. A lot of veterans are going to be impacted by this, and we're very grateful for the platform to be able to put the word out, Will.
We'll get them there. Get them there tonight, guys, and get Eddie and the Semper Fi Fund where they need to be by the end of the year with full matching. Eddie Wright and Bear Handlon, thank you guys so much on this Veterans Day for being here on the Will Cain Show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Will.
God bless America.
There we go. God bless America. There they go. Go check out both of those causes. They're both great. How cool is this box? Hey, Dan, Patrick, you guys see this? I didn't plan this on how to produce this. Could you see inside this box how cool this is?
That's so sweet. I love that.
It's so awesome. And, you know, this is the second one he sent me. He sent me an 80th anniversary of D-Day version a few months ago. And look at that. That's sand from Omaha Beach.
That's
right there.
insane.
That's from the previous box he sent me because he has I think I've got it right over there.
I was very jealous.
So he's got the Betsy Ross shoes.
I saw him playing with the pistol before he came on, and I was like, that's sweet, and I want one.
Here's one right here. The Betsy Ross shoes, the Don't Tread on Me shoes, and the freaking D-Day shoes. I mean,
Can't beat
now
it.
I got to start working out. Yeah. All right. Go check them out. Happy Veterans Day to everyone who's watching. Thanks for hanging out with us on The Will Cain Show. Please subscribe on Apple, Spotify. Become a member of our community. Drop into the comment section and hang out with us every Monday through Thursday on YouTube. I'll see you again next time.